It's great to be home. I'm so thrilled to be here with you today and share with you the Word of God. We had some fantastic times. I'm sure you've been up to date on the videos. My daughter, we had an unexpected breakfast yesterday with daughter and son-in-law, and she said to me, "What was your highlight?" And you may think preaching in front of 2,500 people would have been a highlight. It was okay. To see an LED screen 10 times the size of ours, that was okay as well. But some of the highlights, being in Cambodia, in Siem Reap, in the most forgotten part of Cambodia, and to be there with the 35, 45 people, and to actually be part and parcel of a baby dedication. And the opportunity to pray for those precious Cambodian people who have suffered so much over the last 50 years as a nation. And the biggest highlight, though, was meeting the young man by the name of Kay. And he came and introduced himself to me, and I said, "Special Kay." And he says, "That's what you called me at the age of 13 when I gave my life to Jesus when you were preaching." So to me, that was probably it, the highlight. One person who 30 years ago made a decision to follow Jesus on the night that I was preaching. My legacy extends far beyond what's going on here in Norwich. And I'm really excited about the way God has used Denise and myself over the last 40-odd years in ministry. Being in Thailand, I really love that nation very, very much. And I believe that God is going to do something great there. And I thank God for the opportunity I've had, the small part that I've been able to play in ministering in that country. So thank you for allowing me to be there. Thank you to my darling wife for letting me go. We did video each other every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day, and just staying in touch. But, thank God for that tremendous opportunity to be there. Great, let's get straight into our message, okay? Philippians chapter 2, Sam did a brilliant job last Sunday setting us up. And, as we look at Philippians chapter 2, verse 1, the first word that we come across is the word therefore. Now, in Bible college, and I went to Bible college as a very young man. Spent 3 years there, got my degree, and out of that, I got ordained into the Assemblies of God ministry. But my Bible college principal used to always say, you listening? When you see a therefore, find out what it's there for. I've never forgotten it. It's it's hermeneutics 101. Hermeneutics is the principles of interpreting the Bible. And so when you see it therefore, you've got to find out what it's there for. And it takes us back to chapter 1. And why Paul is actually saying therefore. In Philippians chapter 1, verses 29 to 30, Paul says this: "For it has been granted to you on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him. Since you are going through the same struggle you saw I had, and now hear that I still have." Paul is writing this letter to the Philippian church while he's in jail, chained up. Now, the jails back in the Roman days, nothing compared to what we've got today. I mean, it's like living in the Hilton today, isn't it? Just trying to bring a really good, juxtaposition of what a Roman jail would have been like 2,000 years ago. What Paul was actually saying here was, the struggle you're going through is the same struggle that I'm going through and am still going through. He was in jail. He'd been put there because of his preaching of the gospel. Many Christians during that time were being killed. They were being tortured. They were being fed to lions. They were being taken to the Colosseum. And Paul was in a Roman jail preaching the gospel and encouraging the Philippians to endure the suffering as disciples of Jesus. He knew his days were numbered and would soon pay the price, the ultimate price for his allegiance to Christ. In this passage, Paul references our posture during times of suffering, struggle, or trouble. Now, none of us are strangers to struggle, suffering, and trouble. It's part of life, isn't it? All of us go through difficult times. It's part of what it is. I mean, I look back at the time over the last 3 years, the whole COVID thing. I believe, personally, that people around the world are still processing working through that stuff. Many people are being very successful in the way that they're working it through. Others have not quite made it out yet. It's talking about what kind of a posture should we have during our times of struggle, suffering, and trouble. He was specifically speaking about the suffering of persecution for the faith. But like a good pastor, Paul applied it to other areas of life as well. In our modern world, as we look around, we will do almost anything to escape suffering, won't we? That's why we buy gym memberships and never go. Because we went there once, we came home, and we were so sore that we decided to ourselves, we'll never do it again. If men were responsible for giving birth to babies, the word would have gotten around right at the beginning of time. This is not a good idea, don't do this. Okay? We will do almost anything to escape from suffering. We complain, we kick, scream, and try and take shortcuts to alleviate the pain. We will self-medicate, we will ignore problems, we will refuse to engage with the difficulties that we face. We turn our backs on good advice instead of looking at the situation and praying for God's wisdom in navigating the circumstances that we face. Suffering is not seen in our culture as a noble experience. Paul is speaking about it as a noble experience. God is talking about the posture that we must assume during our times of struggle, during our times when we're going through tough times. I believe Paul highlights in this passage 3 applications for real world living. One of the things I like about this new series, it's called Exposition of Scripture. It means I don't need to come up with an idea. I don't need to come up with the thoughts of, well, what shall we teach on today? All we do is we open the Bible and we let the Bible breathe. We let the Bible speak for itself. We allow God's word to speak for itself. So that's good for us. It's easy, actually. I know we've sat down many times as a team and we've worked through topical preaching. We've had all these subjects that we want to bring to the congregation, and so we work through them and we talk about the applications and we come up with all these great ideas. Well, exposition, you don't need to come up with any great ideas. This is not me telling you what I think you should hear. It's Paul in the book of Philippians, God actually speaking to us what he wants us to do. So this is the good part about exposition. So 3 real-world applications. Number 1, be like-minded by imitating Christ's humility. Therefore, Paul says, having the same mindset as Christ during your sufferings, in verse 2 he says, make my joy complete by being like-minded. Again, as a good pastor, he applies these truths to everyday life. It's not just, look, the Romans are coming in, we're being decimated, we're being killed, tortured, fed to lions, taken to the Colosseum, made sport of. But he also opens it up a little bit to everyday life. Paul's a good pastor. He was a good preacher. He said in verse 3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourself. He's not talking about lions here. He's talking about you in the life of everyday church. He's talking about us as we conduct church on an everyday basis. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. Now, this is not popular culture today. There are no influencers out there who are trying to value others over themselves. In fact, they're drawing attention to themselves, adding value to themselves so that you will buy their product. They're not trying to add value to your life. Paul is encouraging us in our relationships with one another to think like Christ. Verse 5 says, have the same mindset as Christ. He goes on and he says, value others above yourself, even when that seems hard to do. And let's face it, it does seem hard to do. We love our creature comforts. We like to look after ourselves. We want to eat the kind of food we want to eat. We want to sleep in the sort of bed that we want to sleep in. We want to have a lifestyle that is acceptable to us, rather than valuing others at your own expense. Even when it seems hard to do, Paul says, this is what I want you to do. In verses 6 to 11, Paul explains what it means to have that mindset towards others. Number one, Christ in the incarnation didn't see equality with God as a privilege to be leveraged. He didn't use it as to his advantage. Now, he could have. Remember when he was being tempted by Satan and there were rocks in front of him? He'd been fasting for 40 days. The devil says, look, you're hungry. Turn those stones into bread. And he said, man shall not live by bread alone. He could have taken advantage of his divinity, turned those rocks into bread and eaten at that point. But he refused to take advantage of his divine nature. We should never use our privilege to take advantage of others in our favor. To be honest, we should never take advantage of other people. Stop. Taking advantage of people is not what we as Christians are called to do. As we seek to live out the attitude of Christ and have the same mindset as Christ, we're not to take advantage of people, but to regard them as more important than ourselves. Instead, the Bible says, Jesus made himself nothing. Now, you may think nothing here, but look in comparison to what he was. God in heaven, in the glories of heaven, surrounding a throne with angels worshiping him on a moment-by-moment experience. He then became human. He became nothing. Now, this point irks a lot of people. As we see from this verse, Jesus took the very nature of a servant. Now, this isn't me deciding I'm going to preach on servanthood today. This is Paul in the book of Philippians saying that Jesus took the very nature of a servant, and so should we. You should take the very nature of a servant. You should be the sort of person that serves other people. Our posture towards those around us is simple. It's to serve them, to value them, and see them as more. This is such an uncommon cultural position today. Number three, Bill rightly gave us the timeline for the communion. This was the night he was to be betrayed, taken before the council, lies and blasphemies would be laid at his feet, and then he would be brought to Pilate the next morning and he would be crucified. So all of this, Jesus became obedient to the suffering that was there in his experience. Humility, of course, such an underrated characteristic. Many people disregard humility. Humility is funny. Let me explain. Proud people don't know they're proud. You know? People see in you. Listen carefully. Submit to the suffering. and know that we live by the grace of God. Could you imagine a woman going in to give birth and saying, that's it. I'm not going to scream anymore. I'm not going to suffer anymore. This thing's just going to fall out. Men, think about this carefully. You were the observant one. You didn't have to experience it. But there are other areas of suffering that we go through. Submit to God. Walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Sit at the table in the presence of your enemies. Submit to the suffering and know that we live by the grace of God. Humility is acknowledging that God is God and I am not. You do not choose what happens to you. The greatest act of faith is when a man or a woman understands that he or she is not God. I don't understand why bad things happen to good people. I don't understand the lack of fairness in the world that we live in. It's hard, isn't it? I don't understand why people would persecute me simply based on what I believe, but they do. Towards others, we should also show a humble spirit. We don't know what people are going through. We have no idea what is, if we were to pull the curtain back a little bit and to see behind it, find out what they're going through. I think it would shatter some of us. As a result of this, what? As a result of Jesus' humility, obedient to the point of death, God exalted him, giving him a name above all names. For those of us who are searching for promotion, and there's nothing wrong with it. Scripture starts off by saying, don't give yourself over to selfish ambition. Nothing wrong with ambition. Selfish ambition is what the Scripture points out. Promotion comes through humility. And the promotion that God gives us is not necessarily the kind of promotion that will garner the attention of the masses. Have you got it? Sunday night, 2 weeks ago, when I went home, thinking of the young man, Mr. K, who gave his heart to Jesus when he was 13, that to me is incredible. That to me, when I slept well that night, thinking about my legacy, I have no idea how many people got saved over my ministry. I have no idea where they are today and what they're doing. Kay is on staff at a great church, probably one of the greatest churches in Thailand. Thankfully, I got the ability to preach there and the opportunity. Promotion comes through humility, not pushing yourself forward, playing it big, or boasting. It's not putting others down either. There's no reason to put somebody down so that you can be lifted up. There's one of the rules in the gym that I go to. Never look down on somebody unless you're reaching your hand out to help them back up again. I'm not seeking prominence. If I was seeking prominence, things would be very different today. People who seek prominence are opportunists, taking advantage of people and situations. But seeking significance through obedience is another thing. Being significant is very different from prominence. Prominence comes and goes. You're there one day, you're not the next. You know what I mean? Unless you're Rhiannon. Is it Rihanna? How do you pronounce her name? She won all those Grammy Awards. Rihanna. She's still winning them. That's prominence, right? One day, though, there'll be a Grammy Awards service and she won't win anything. And everybody will get upset, like they did the last time. You got it? Prominence is transient. Significance remains. It's not manipulating a situation to get your own way. but prayerfully submitting yourself to God with a humble attitude. How many people thought to themselves, I'm going to marry this person, and once I've married them, then I will change them? And it's not going to work, is it? That person you are thinking about marrying, look at them carefully. When they tell you who they are, believe them. And make wise decisions about the future. Because I'm telling you, you will not be able to change someone. What God's more interested in is our ability to respond to difficult situations. Now, Denise did have the success at changing a few things. I remember I went up to her one day and I said, where are my socks and underwear? There's none. I can't find any in the drawer. She says, if you go into the bathroom and look behind the door, you'll find a pile of dirty ones. She says, I only wash things that have been put into the dirty clothes basket. My behavior changed that day. But I believe she manipulated that situation. I believe I am the aggrieved party. They're all laughing, okay? Just so that you know, they're all laughing, okay? That was called a joke for those of you that have no sense of humor. Prayerfully submit yourself to God with a humble attitude. You won't hear this kind of advice in management or success-orientated courses. You just won't hear it. You just won't hear it. Paul explains that being like-minded is to be obedient, humble, willing to experience suffering until God brings deliverance. And God can bring deliverance one of two ways. He will help you through the valley of the shadow of death, or he will take you out of the shadow of death and into heaven. Right? Got it? That's how God works. Again, you're not going to hear this on social media. Value others above yourself. This is what humility is. Trying to shortcut your experience is not an answer, but patient endurance is our Christ-like response. Sounds like a hard thing, isn't it, in a modern world today? C.S. Lewis once said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Taking the extra time to think of others. In a world where everyone has an opinion, this encouragement seems counter-cultural. Being like-minded is us learning to flow with others and coming to a consensus rather than being the one who must always be right, causing others grief and heartache because you are so pushy, aggressive, or always insisting and getting your own way. I'm not going to repeat that. Life is not a social media canvas, but it's where the rubber hits the road. And more is accomplished when we are like-minded, of the same spirit and attitude. Humility leads to strength, not weakness. It's the highest form of self-respect, to admit mistakes and to make amends for them. Build relationships with others. Seek to see the world through their eyes. Understand that people may be going through so much that you are unaware of. Remember, talent is God-given. Be humble. Fame is man-given. Be grateful. Conceit is self-given. Be careful. What makes humility so desirable is the marvelous things that it does in us. It creates in us a capacity for the closest possible intimacy with God and with others. But Paul has another real-world application in this chapter, and it's called don't grumble. The word grumble means to complain, moan, protest, gripe, object, or mutter. Got it? Anybody sort of not understanding the word yet? Grumble. Don't grumble. I really need to hear this message. Stop it, Denise. But let's face it, it's our main response to trouble. It's our main response to difficult people in tough situations, isn't it? Oh, why me, Lord? What did I do wrong? Why did you bring these people into my world? The answer is that you may not, let me say it again. The answer is you may not have done anything wrong. Okay, these people just come into your world. You may not have done anything wrong. Experiences come, bad things happen to good people. Got it? Great people get sick and some of them die. It's just the way it is. Life is unfair. Bad things happen to good people, right? So it may not have been anything you've done. It could have been that you made some bad choices. If so, go back and make amends, learn to apologize and navigate the circumstances, relying on God's grace and wisdom, but don't grumble. Now, this isn't me saying this, okay? This is not the topic as a team we would have chosen to preach to you, right? Don't grumble, right? We're not putting together a series on not grumbling, right? Not many people would come along to that one. Okay, but this is what the Bible says. Don't grumble. But why not grumble? Because God knows that your grumbling won't fix the problem. You're getting mad at a problem rather than spending time searching for a solution. God oftentimes waits for a change in us towards difficult people and situations so that we can see our way through. Verse 13. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. God working in you rather than you grumbling. Your grumbling will not achieve the righteousness of God. Your anger will not achieve the righteousness of God. God maybe didn't cause the problem. God didn't cause the problem, but he will help you to make sense of it. The dysfunction in the world is caused by the rebellion of man against God's principles, but it's not necessarily in a personal cause and effect way. Sometimes it is our fault. We make stupid decisions. We say stupid things. Are you hearing me? Even then, his grace will assist us in navigating the circumstance, the people, the situations, the consequences of your actions. Verse 14, do everything without grumbling or arguing. So Paul comes in and he says, don't just not grumble, stop arguing. I don't know if I like that. I like a good argument. I like to push the boundaries a little bit, you know, just to let people know that I know what I'm talking about. But Paul is saying, stop grumbling and stop being argumentative so that we could become blameless and pure. How? By not grumbling and arguing, we're acting like God's children without fault in a warped generation. Just saying here, the context says the warped generation is the generation of grumblers and arguers. I had the great joy in Thailand to be able to drink mango smoothies a lot. I love mango smoothies. If I was to put that on a social media post, the next comment would be, well, what's wrong with oranges? Why don't you like bananas? Are you hearing me? Argumentative. This is an argumentative culture. You can't even say, I like mango smoothies, without somebody coming up and making a comment. I made a particular comment on a political website a couple of months ago, and I came back a few days later and I saw the responses to my comment and I deleted my comment. I thought, stuff you. Sorry, am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I've said it anyway now. You know, I am not going to put up with that. And so I deleted my comment. There are so many challenges when it comes to not grumbling or arguing. What about you? Are you a grumbler? Do you grumble a lot? Don't put your hand up. Do you live with a grumbler? Actually, I'd be interested to know that one. If you live with a grumbler, put your hand up. No, don't put your hand up. I'm only joking. Do you live with a grumbler? Shut up, Denise. My God. I don't want to make anybody feel guilty here if you are a grumbler. I'm just opening the scripture. Paul says, don't be a grumbler and don't argue. It's a powerful principle that says, don't grumble, but instead shine through your difficulties. Verse 15, he says, then, why? When you stop grumbling and arguing, you will shine like the stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. So the holding firmly to the word of life makes it possible for us to stop grumbling and arguing. Paul had every reason to grumble. He was in a Roman jail in appalling conditions. He says that his life is being poured out like a drink offering. He was preparing himself for death. He could have had many reasons to grumble and get angry with God, but he didn't. Instead, he said, I'm glad and rejoice. Stop grumbling. So pull yourself up when you grumble. You know what? It's like humility and pride. Grumblers don't know that they're grumbling until somebody points it out to them. And we do not like it being pointed out to us at all. You're a grumbler. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. You're a grumbler. So then we start an argument. So not only are we grumbling, but we're arguing. That's not working, is it? Stop grumbling. Allow God to do what he desires to do in your life. In verse 12, Paul says, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. I have got another whole point here, but I haven't got time to preach it. So that's what happens when you just let the scripture speak. Next Sunday is Philippians 3, and it starts with these words in verse 1. Furthermore, my brothers and sisters, rejoice in the Lord. It's no trouble for me to write the same thing to you again. It's a safeguard for you. So rejoice. Stop grumbling. Be happy. Get on with life. Hang on to the word of life. Hang on to the submission that you find in Jesus. Stop trying to live your own kind of life, but value others as more important than yourself. Walk with that certain sense of humility in life. Meekness is not weakness. God wants you to be a certain kind of person so that we will shine like the stars in the sky. Got it? Yes. So good to be back. God bless you. I'll be back in a sec.